Well, it is 7:30. We will call the December meeting of the Whitley County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Roll call, please.
Jack Green.
Here.
Kelley Sheiss.
Here.
Danny Wilkinson.
Here.
Doug Wright.
Here.
And Joe Wolf.
Here. Next on the agenda is the consideration and adoption of November 26 minutes.
They have not been prepared yet, sir.
Okay, we will move on then. Right now we administer an oath. Can one of you guys do that, or
yep.
do we need? Okay, we will. If you plan to speak tonight for any reason, please stand and the gentleman will administer an oath.
What? I do this all the time.
I know.
If you would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these matters tonight? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you.
All right, moving to old business. We have a continuation from last month, 24 WSE 17. Horvath Communications and William and Tobi Culp will be on this docket next. To let you guys know, here's how we'll run the meeting. The petitioner, well, we will read your petition. Staff will give the staff report. Then the petitioner will come to the podium and give his name and address, and then give his petition. Then we will have time for questions if anybody has questions. And then after that, we will have time for anybody to speak for or against the motion. And then if the petitioner so desires, he can rebut on those and that. But when you come to the podium, please state your name and address. So, all right, we'll continue with 24 WSE 17, Horvath Communications, William and Tobi Culp. Horvath Communications, lessee of the subject property, is requesting a special exception approval for a communication tower to be constructed on the subject property located on the east side of Wolf Road, 675 feet north of US 30, more commonly known as 610 North Wolf Road in Section 5 of Columbia Township. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going to the staff report. This is 610 North Wolf Road, Zoned AG Agricultural. Total area involved is approximately 10,000 square feet plus some additional easement areas located on a parcel that's a little over 8 acres in size, located on the northeast corner of Wolf Road in US 30, just outside Columbia City's jurisdictional area. The request is for a special exception for a new telecommunications tower. General details, of course, there are more details in the written staff report, but this would be a 190-foot self-supporting tower, including the lightning rod. Self-supporting, being a lattice tower, also designed for self-collapsing, so it would collapse in itself, and that's important, as you know from previous cases. When you have self-collapsing towers, we don't have the height of the tower plus 50 feet as our standard. State law says we can't do that. It's basically just 50 feet, so the fall zone is itself. 100 by 100 leased equipment compound area, additional lease or easements for access and utilities. It would be enclosed with an 8-foot wooden fence and landscaping per code. If you recall, the last time we saw one, they proposed not to have the required landscaping. This includes a fence and landscaping per the code, so no need for an additional variance. Like what we had seen last time. A difference in location as well. This is on a property that's already developed with a house and outbuildings. You can see the overall area. A little closer view, this would be located to the northeast of the building that's in the center there. I'll show you an overlay. Overall site plan on the left, overall tower plan on the right, showing the required 3 additional co-location antenna mounting points that were required by code. Closer view of the equipment area. This, I believe, is an earlier version that doesn't include the future equipment pad. There were a couple different versions going around during this process. One of the conditions will be to have a finished, refined version when we're all said and done. So we have that for the file. Overlay view for reference again, tower location right here. That building I mentioned is here. The house is here, and other outbuildings up here. There is some debris on the property that this tower would be located on top of or replace. Before going into the criteria, I will say in staff's opinion, most of the criteria are met. Suggested conditions, one is our standard as presented and per the site plan. Number 2, I think, is going to be a standard whenever we have a wood fence for cell towers, that it be maintained in good condition so as to provide a big screen. Number 3 is just a refinement and reiteration that the landscaping would be provided per the code and for the submitted site plan. Number 4 is also a reiteration of the code. And 5 is what I just mentioned, that a finalized version of the plans be submitted so we have a comprehensive final version for the file. Going into the long list of telecommunication tower specific criteria, all of this as staff notes in the written staff report. The only one that I want to point out is G4. Towers shall be placed no closer than 500 feet from any residential district or commercial zoning district. We had this last time, and we've mentioned this before. Because cell towers in the county's jurisdiction are allowable in AG, our agricultural district, in our commercial districts, and in the industrial districts, having a setback from commercial districts is problematic. So it's been the past interpretation to say that 500 feet from a commercial district doesn't apply. That's important here because the next property to the east, which is in the city's zoning jurisdiction, is zone commercial. So we're disregarding that setback because of that previous interpretation. Otherwise, as stated in the written staff report, staff feels like these criteria are met, or these standards are met. And then the review criteria, of course, we have a couple minor things dealing with noise that are mentioned in there, and visual impression with cell towers, pretty standard comments with the special exception criteria. So with that, any questions for me?
Nathan, do you have a record of other cell phone towers that are already on property that's developed with house and outbuildings in the county?
I would have to do research. I do know of one because it came up with the last case, located up on US 33, just south of the county line. Okay. That one actually had a house built on it after the cell tower, as well as a couple houses immediately adjacent to it.
Gotcha. I know which one you're talking about.
But yeah, another one that I can think of is a cell tower located on a business property, Rupley Farm Equipment, on the south side of the county. That cell tower is just off outside of their business area. It's not a residence, but I'd have to look more into it, though.
Okay, thank you.
Old Trail Road.
Oh, thank you.
There
yeah.
it's Judah Baker's right behind the trailer.
Yeah, that one's a guide tower too, isn't it? If I recall correctly.
Believe
So
so. Yes, it
relatively
is.
large.
Okay. Any other questions for Nathan? Seeing none, petitioner, you'd like to come to the podium and state what you're going to do?
Hello, my name is Fred Lau. I'm with Kelley Tower Consultants. My address is 216 Barton Avenue in Terre Haute, Indiana. I don't expect you to know exactly where that is. I also have today with me Royce Lau, who actually also did part of the search for this particular area. I brought him just in case he knows something I don't that you might ask. You've all been through this in the recent past, I'm sure, but I'm just going to really quickly explain to you our process and what our responsibilities are. In this case, a carrier contacted Horvath Towers, who I work for, and asked specifically for a site in this area to host their equipment to improve their coverage along that US 30 corridor. When we get that kind of an order, they put a spot on the map and then they give us a nice little area that would work for them technically to be able to improve the service. So what we do is we research the zoning ordinance, and then we research the properties that are available, and we put together a search list, and then we start sending out letters to folks and also knocking on doors. And in this case, the door knocking got us more responses than the letter responses. There's basically 5 things that we're looking for when we're looking for a place to put a new tower. One is to make sure there's no other possibility for co-location on another structure that will meet the needs that the carrier has put in front of us. In this case, we don't have another tower within 2 miles of us, and nothing of a considerable height that would meet the requirement. So that's number 1. Number 2, we look at the zoning ordinance, make sure that we're in a zoning district that allows for the tower. In this case, AG does allow for towers with a special exception. And then we look at tower parcel sizes to make sure we can fit a tower on with a reasonable setback and away from residential properties as much as we can, because we don't want to be right on top of somebody. And in this case, you also have to have a willing landowner, right? So that's where Royce and I both spent a lot of time talking to the landowners in the area and the property owners, and making inquiry of any landowner that would consider developing their property for telecommunications. In this case, Mr. Culp, who owns the property currently, indicated that he would, and we started pursuing that property in mind that we felt that it met the ordinance requirements, it met the spirit of the development. We also always download, like in 2022, you all did a study on how you wanted the community to develop. We try to keep that in mind when we do this search as well. In this case, we designed a tower we're 143 foot from the property line. We had the tower professional engineer look at that, and he stipulated that they will design that tower to collapse within 90 feet from the center of tower, which is well inside that existing property, which is something we want to make sure we don't negatively impact the neighboring properties. So that gave us a good buffer. It was even smaller than we really had to do it. The other thing that we did look at was the height of the tower, and we submitted the RF propagation maps, but also this particular RF engineer did a great job, I thought, of explaining exactly what he was trying to accomplish with this particular site. One of the things that he was trying to do was to make sure he was at the right height so that it played well with the existing sites that Verizon already has in the area. That's why it's a 180-foot tower with a 175-foot center line. That's exactly what he needed to play well with the existing sites that are in the area that he has to interface with. I'm sure you've heard this before, the way they design the cell phone towers. The system itself is kind of like a honeycomb, and all those sites have to fit together and play nicely with each other. You can't be too close one way, you can't be too far away, and you can't be too high or too low. So this meets his requirements, exactly what he asked us for, which was really nice, and he was pretty happy with it. So his two goals with this site is, one, to offload two very busy sites, one north of this site and one south. So it's going to take some of that traffic flow. Now, why is that important? It's important because one of his other criteria was he wants to improve the high band throughput for all the sites in this area, with the idea that you'll be able to do wireless internet on this tower in an efficient manner and use it as a broadband alternative to the landlines, the fiber lines that are also, I'm sure, being put in the county. So it's just one more option for the residents, and it also improves the communications along that US 30 corridor, which I know, or we've seen it be important to the emergency response folks, that they can always get through if there's something that happens on that major thoroughfare. And I know you guys have tons of traffic. We've been on it. It's something that I would be concerned with. So we do run two utilities to these towers. I'm sure you know fiber and power. Fiber is basically how that tower gets the signal and everything out to the outside world. The power is just required to run the equipment. One thing that they've done over the last 25 years is they've really reduced the equipment footprint. The noise on these sites is minimal now. Most of their equipment is DC now instead of AC, so the generator requirements are much smaller. Yes, so, and I believe in this case we're a 65 by 65 foot compound, but we can expand that if we need to. We do have lease area that's available for that, but the way it's designed is for 4 carriers on the footprint and on the tower. So the anchor tenant plus 3 more.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner?
So you mentioned that you sent out letters and you did
Yes,
door to door. There's a lot of open area, a lot of farm fields, a lot.
there it is. Which got
You
me
got
very,
nobody else.
we were very excited when we got this site, because you have all that open agricultural field, but those owners, not every single one, we did have some conversation with, what, 2? Yes, that went past the first initial offering. But the majority of that open field, they were not interested. What we find with agricultural people, they like their agricultural, farmers like to farm. They don't want to drive around us. So we kind of have a balancing act with farmers. We have to be off of the property lines at least a reasonable distance, but that does take up ag field. And in a lot of cases, especially in a big open field, you don't want to now put an obstruction that now you have to drive around, where always before you just get in the tractor and go down, down, down. Now I got an obstruction that I got to farm around. It's not always as, oh my gosh, it's an open field, it's easy. But we didn't find any other ones that expressed the desire to move forward with us.
Okay, because you mentioned you try to stay away from residential properties as much as possible, and I mean you're kind of like, it looks like you're smack dab right in the middle there with a lot of open area around, but
Right.
it wasn't an option to go anywhere else.
We did not have a owner of any of the big open property that you're looking at that came back to us in a positive and said, yeah, we'll look at doing that. Let's move forward. We got an initial response of, yeah, well, we'll think about it. And then a week later, no, that's really not something we want to do.
And then the access point, I know maintenance wouldn't be in there a lot, but for construction, the access point, will it come off of 30 there? Will you bring all the vehicles, and when you're putting the tower up, will you turn on Wolf Road right off of 30, or will you access via Lincoln Way?
We typically would just take the easiest route and safest route. So off 30 would probably be the
That's not
first
the
option,
safest
but we
one
just
right
talked
there.
about how busy that is.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
would adjust, and we'll work through the permitting process. We'll work with your road commission and the building department and make sure our construction plan matches what they want to see on a building front. That building process takes about, from start to finish, 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it's not a long, drawn-out process, but there for about 2 weeks when we're putting in the foundation. That's probably the biggest impact from a traffic standpoint. The nice thing about these, and that's one of the requirements of the ordinance, is that they're unmanned and maintained off-site. You really look at it, maybe we usually quote 1 truck a month, and it'll be a passenger vehicle that comes by to either look at the site, to maintain the site. Anything of that nature is going to be small equipment past that first construction.
Okay. And then one last one. So help me understand, because we never talked about this, and then it kind of goes back to my question. When somebody leases, when somebody gives that ground to lease for a cell phone tower or a property owner, do they get paid monthly, yearly, one lump sum?
It can be either any of those three, or however else that they would like to be compensated.
Okay.
It just depends on the business terms that are negotiated through that leasing process, but it could be any of those.
So a property owner could say, I want the one lump sum now for the length of the lease.
They could.
And take that money, and they may not be the property owner for the longevity of it. I mean, that property could change hands.
That is possible.
Okay. So it was brought up and one of the letters says, but that ground's under land contract, and
So
the people making the request are the property owners, but they're not the contract owners.
yeah, so let me take you through that process just a little bit, because we've done these before where it's under land contract. So what we do is we deal with both the current property owner and the pending property owner, and we get them together. In this case, we spoke with Mr. Culp's attorney and had him work with both entities that are in that land contract, and came up with a acceptable agreement between the two of them, how this lease would be handled going forward. It's beneficial to both. That's all I can say. I can't get into the specifics of it, but we made sure that all the parties that were involved were fully involved and aware of what was going. Actually, for the site walk, I actually met with the contract landowner, and we've actually also met with Mr. Culp before he went south for the winter, and everybody's on the same page as far as the contract goes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none,
Joe, I do have an answer for Kelley. I did find one. I found a couple other properties with cell towers, but this one is probably the most comparable, located on South State Road 9. The railroad track is just north of here, so this is between the railroad track and 14. So
I know which
this
one
is
that
what it
is.
looks like. Cell tower is right off of the house yard, so very, very similar situation.
Nathan, you could probably, and I should pay more attention to the Propel US 30 meetings. Is that intended eventually along the way? Is that intended to be closed off there, that Wolf Road access?
I don't think NDOT is looking at closing Wolf Road in any of the scenarios, maybe one of the 4 different scenarios. For the most part, as I recall, it's a right in, or meeting you.
I did right out.
Okay.
Yeah, so there might be one that's an overpass, but yeah.
Okay, anything else? You may have a seat.
Thank you.
Anybody with questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll go ahead with the public hearing. Anybody to speak for or against this motion? So you may come to the podium and speak at this time. Okay, seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and give it back to the board. Is there anything else from the board?
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Kelley, go ahead.
So there were some concerns about the current upkeep of the property, and I know we put specifications in place for the fence, the screening, maintenance of that property. If the residential property adjacent to that, is that a health department issue? Is that something that comes if that property becomes derelict, so to speak? Is it two different things?
It would be two different things. Yeah,
Okay.
the special exception is constrained to the tower location and anything related to the tower. So anything that's existing or comes about because of the residents, it would either be a zoning thing or more likely a junk and trash issue with the health department.
Okay.
There might be a few things that might overlap, but I don't know without being very, very particular whether we could specify.
I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Good question.
You don't need to comment at all on that.
If you want to, feel free.
That'd be great. We actually discussed this when we first found the property because, as was mentioned, there is a bit of, you want to say rubbish pile, I think is how they have it labeled. But at the very least, that is going to cease to be an issue because that's going to be cleaned up when we go into the construction process. And I think Mr. Cook, when I was talking to him about it, was like, that is a great thing. I've been meaning to do that. But that, to me, is a benefit of having that there. We also maintain that roadway out to the right-of-way. So that's also our responsibility as the tower owner to maintain that roadway, that access road out. So I'm not saying it's not pain to see. I'm not going to fix everything, but it'll be certainly different when we get done with the construction phase.
That ground between the pond that's there and 30, is that too low for a placement? I know how the property.
Yes, it's too low, and it's even closer to the pond than the current location. One of the reasons we designed it the way we designed it is because we don't want to impact that pond negatively either. So we designed it where it was to have as little impact as we could on the existing vegetation, on the existing waterway.
So how far is it from the pond on the other side, on the adjoining property owners, if you don't want to impact a pond?
To the north?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, we're 140 from that. So we're at least 200 feet from that pond to the north.
And what would the potential impacts of the pond be that you didn't want to?
We just from a silt generation, just any impact on that, either one of those bodies of water, we're going to try to minimize. That's how we always approach these.
Okay. And you don't foresee runoff since you'll be setting that on top of the hill on either one?
No, and we'll work with the local erosion board to make sure if we need to do silt fencing during the construction phase before it grows back in, that'll prevent that either direction, north or south.
Any other questions?
I might have a question.
Did we close this?
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah, we closed the public hearing.
It's up to you if you want to
So
allow it.
we'll go ahead and allow it. So, Jason, if you'd like to come to the podium.
So Jason Holzinger, I'm pond there to the north. You guys are talking about that's actually 730 North Wolf Road. I have the property at 733 North Wolf Road where my residence is across the road. I guess you started off by saying that you've contacted two, then there was like 2 or 3 people, or what? You didn't have any specifics. Like you were just fumbling around how many people you reached out. It seems to me you found the first guy to kind of jump on this, and it was easier for you, less legwork. Did you go to the property just to the west? There's a big 300-acre field, empty lot. Did you go to that owner?
You need to talk to them, but I'll respond, but we can't do that.
Okay. Yeah, so you said there was 2 to 3. Yeah, do you give them specifics of who was contacted and who had turned it down?
Sure. We did no less than 4 visits to the area with door knocks. We also sent out letters. I will tell you that we contacted Tatmeyer, who owns a lot of area around there, and they were just not interested. We also went outside the lease area or the search area that we were in because we want to be complete. We talked to the Wrights, who have the business there right on 30. It was just outside the area that RF wanted, so we wanted to make sure that that wouldn't be a possibility for them. We also contacted, well, it's Taylor now, I think, but the neighbor right across the street.
No,
I'm sorry.
Me.
I'm sorry. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. I've been to your house. I've been to your house. I've left cards there. We sent letters to who we thought was the owner. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to do that either. And we also contacted and I don't know this name, Julerat.
Yes.
Okay. And the Schraders, which is just to the east. So when I say we had conversations with 2 or 3 owners, that what I was referencing in that statement, we had 2 or 3 owners that went past the first conversation. Okay, it said, yeah, we'll think about it. All of those owners, those 2 other ones I'm referencing, came back and did not want to go another step and actually develop the project. So we actually, Mr. Cook is who's living there now, but the Culps were not on our original list. But when we didn't have any luck with the larger parcels, then we went that direction. So I'm pretty confident we've contacted I didn't even talk about the retirement village or the retirement home that's right across the way. That's where we started. And we had 2 proposals into them that they decided because they're looking to expand, they didn't want to entertain a communications facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we've had our discussion and that, and everything. Right now, we've discussed it between the board and that. This is a special exception, so it'll need a motion and a second.
I move we approve petition 24 WSE 17 filed by Horvath Communications / William and Tobi Culp with the 5 suggested conditions that the staff requested.
I'd second that.
We have a motion by Danny, a second by Jack. All those in favor of approving the motion with the conditions presented by staff, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Vote is 4-1. Motion passes. All right, now on to new business. Our new business is 24, variance 22, Thorncreek Township Trustee. Thorncreek Township Trustee, owner of the subject property, is requesting a development standard variance approval for an EMC sign installation on the property located on the north side of 500 North, 3/4 of a mile west of State Road 9, more commonly known as 821 East, 500 North, in Section 10 of Thorncreek Township, also commonly known as the Thorncreek Township Fire Department. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I will come buzz through these slides. This is on 500 North, 5 acres and age agricultural, Thorncreek Fire Station. What is being proposed is to replace the existing non-functional electronic message center, EMC, with a functional one that's slightly larger. The current sign was installed, I think, around 2014 or so. We could not find that there was actually a permit for the sign, for what that's worth. And there was no permit, there was no variance for the EMC. So when this came up, we said, hey, need the variance. That's why we're here, because section 8.3K11 prohibits EMC. We'll change that eventually, but right now that's the way the sign code reads. All of the other aspects of the sign, both the existing static portion and together with the EMC portion, meet all of the other standards other than just having the EMC. Aerial view for reference, highlighted in blue is the site. You do have some residences across the way, and 500 North is a relatively well-trafficked road. I forget the exact classification, but I'm thinking it's a collector road in the transportation plans, so you do have some there. Street view showing the existing sign with the existing non-functioning EMC on top. This is the proposed sign, basically widening out the digital component to match the static portion. I believe the height's just slightly larger as well. Along with any EMC that we've had variance for, I do recommend some conditions with the variance if it is to be approved, just to reassure us that in lieu of having standards in code, reassure us of having some standards for the sign, particularly dealing with flashing elements. So those are the suggested conditions. As I've stated in previous cases, EMCs are generally supportable for various reasons, and this location doesn't seem like one that would not be supportable. So any questions for me?
Does the guy come with a sign?
That would be a...
It's just like a random guy in a suit. I didn't know.
Notice what I put on the screen here. I cut the guy off, so...
They dress him up.
You'd rather have a lady?
I don't know. I
I
thought we'd see him like in a volunteer
That's
firefighter.
probably for sign size, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's how you know there's firefighters then. Maybe it's for a calendar too. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Petitioner, you come to the podium and state what you'd like to do.
Good evening, my name is Bill Bryce. I'm the trustee of Thorncreek Township, and I live at 1600 East Poplar Road in Columbia City. And as Nathan stated, we have a sign that we didn't get a variance for. That I don't know how that happened, but we found out about it when we tried to buy a new sign and came in to get the permit and was told that we didn't have one. We looked back to like 2002, because I don't even know when. I'm not sure where he came from, 2014. I have no idea when that sign was put in. But we couldn't find one. I even talked to some of the guys at the firehouse and said, do you know when this was put in, or do you remember a permit? And nobody ever remembers anything. So here we are asking for a permit to change our ECM. We'd like to use it to put firefighters on there a number of years. Just meeting, to announce meetings, to announce holidays. I did read through this.
Fish fries.
Fish fries, absolutely. Yeah, we'll put laurels on there too. Yeah. The suggested conditions here, the 4 suggested conditions, I think those are all doable. I like them. We'd already talked about that. We want to be good neighbors with the people who live around the area. And that's something we didn't have with the sign we have now, is the ability to reduce the power to it. So this new one does have that ability. And I think these watch fire signs have been put in probably a lot of places around the county. And so they're very familiar with the what needs to be done. And we're happy with those conditions. So we'd just like to ask for a variance and a permit to get that sign.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we go ahead and have a seat, Bill. Pardon me if I call people by their first name, but like every small community, we know everybody. So I'm Jack. Is there anybody here to speak for or against this motion? Seeing none, we will go back to the board. This is a variance, so we vote. All those in
We
favor?
have conditions.
Oh, conditions, yes,
We need a
conditions.
motion.
I am sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah. The suggested conditions are: the sign shall not appear to flash, undulate, pulse, or portray explosions, fireworks, flashes, or light or blinking or chasing lights. Electronic messages may not change more rapidly than once every 1.5 seconds. Electronic messages may not require more than 10 seconds to display in its entirety. The sign shall have a sensor or other device that automatically determines the ambient illumination and be programmed to automatically dim according to the ambient light conditions. So, okay. All those in favor of variance 24W variance? Yes.
We actually do need a motion and second.
Okay.
I move we support 24W variance 22 development standards variance on behalf of Thorncreek Township and the fire department with the 4 suggested conditions listed.
I'll second.
Kelley has made a motion. Doug has made a second to approve with the conditions suggested by staff for 24W variance 22. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
I want to see that guy in the suit by the sign when it's done.
And you are,
I'll get them for you. I'll bring them here.
Oh, for you.
Thank you. We'll be around Thursday.
okay, our next item will be another variance, 24W variance 23, and forgive me if my pronunciation is not right. Brunel Gump, owner of the subject property, is requesting a development standards variance approval for minimum required square footage of a dwelling located at 5822 North, 350 East, in Section 7 of Thorncreek Township. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going to the staff report. This is located on 350 East at the east end of Round Lake, zoned LR Lake Residential. What's being proposed is to remodel the current residence. Apparently, this was originally constructed, the assessor's date says 1945, but thinking it may actually be slightly older than that, not entirely certain. Was originally constructed as a garage with an apartment above it. Some point in time, it appears that the garage space was converted into living space to create 2 apartments. The petitioner is proposing to revert that lower level living space back to being a garage as originally built. And he can give you more details on exactly what that entails, leaving only the upper level living space in there. So more or less reverting it back. There's some additional remodeling, bringing it up to current tastes and so on. The proposed living area is approximately 776 square feet, all on that second floor. The code requires a minimum total floor area of 950 square feet with a minimum main floor area of 700 square feet. So the variances required for this proposal would be 174 square feet from the total, and then the entirety of the main floor area. Also, I did not mention it in the written staff report, but someone did point it out to me earlier today. Lake Residential requires main floor area. It was also an interesting comparison because our village commercial district, the way it was written until we did a small code change earlier this year, only allowed for residences on the second floor. So we actually have another district that purely uses residences only on second floors. So just for general reference, that concept is not that important. Going to the reference locations here, this is the site, fairly tight. You can see that on the south side, right-hand side of the property, the neighbor has a driveway going back to their home, and on the left, to the north side, the left side, is a detached garage, and in between are the parking spaces for this dwelling currently. Street view, you can see very clearly the old garage door bays right here, and then this one, and then the access here, and then there's another one over here on the other side. The submitted floor plan, or one of the submitted floor plans, I believe this is the one that went out in your packet. There was another one that had some more details as well. And then the submitted proposed elevation. This is looking, I believe, from the street to the east. The living area would be accessed from the back deck. Correct me if I'm wrong. Petitioner can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that would be the main access, would be exterior staircase. So going to the review criteria, generally staff is supportive of this. This is a historic property, so we of course give some deference in variances to historic properties, historic, old, constructed pre-code, whatever you want to say. It is important to note that it is not generally supportable to not meet the minimum floor area because that is a health concern, particularly for future owners. Making sure that there's an adequate space, expected space for someone who would be living there in the future. However, again, this is a older property, and so with that nature, I feel like someone who would be buying the property would know what they were getting themselves into rather than moving into it and all of a sudden feeling claustrophobic. Well, that's kind of a strong word, but it wouldn't be large enough for, say, a family to move in and so on. But because of the more historic nature of it, that's kind of countered with what the expectation is. Overall, 776 square feet does exceed what our minimum is for an apartment generally, if this was in our multifamily district. So you do have that as well. So again, generally speaking, staff is supportive of this for those reasons. So any questions for me?
If there's no questions, petitioner, if you would come to the podium and state what you would like to do.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Burnell, but since we're a small community, you can call me Bernie. And we bought this property a couple of years ago. In 2016, we bought the property to the south. So we're right next door, adjacent to it. And you saw the actual pictures of the front elevation. That's what it looks like now. And so we kind of bought it out of concern because it's kind of ugly. And the driveway there on the right-hand side leads up to Rod and Joe, her name is Joe, on the hill up there. And this has been a duplex. And by talking to neighbors and looking at your county records, it appears as though somebody by the name of Greer purchased the property in 1993. And that owner is probably responsible, from talking to the neighbors, of turning it into a duplex. So it was built as a garage. It's an 8x8x16 block, your standard block. And it does sort of have a stucco thing here and there, but you know, it's kind of a bad stucco job. And so the neighbors, Rod and Joe to the right, were quite concerned about it because he used to be a garbage truck driver, so he'd leave at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and the tenants would be parked in his driveway, and then he'd have to try and get them out. I happen to have been I am a realtor, and I am a licensed general contractor in Fort Wayne. I never gave my address. I live at 1210 West Wayne Street in Fort Wayne, Indiana. About half the week, and the other half I live at 5805 North 350 East. Fort Wayne is technically mine, so if you see me voting in this county, you'll have to kick me out of line. So, anyway, I have rental properties in Fort Wayne. I don't want to come to the lake and deal with tenants. I've been doing it for 45 years. My wife still has the house she bought when she was 19, and she's now 70. So we have been in the rental business for a long time. And so I didn't want it to be a rental. I'm not opposed to rentals. I just want to fix this place up, but I don't want to deal with tenants while I'm living there. Obviously, you can see where those two awnings are on the front. Those used to be overhead doors, an 8x7 and a 16x7. There is a side entrance here to the right with an awning on it, which goes into the garage area. There's also a door on the north side, access directly into the garage. And then you can see a roof overhang further back. That is actually a stairway, an interior stairway that will take you to the upstairs apartment. I need to talk to some building inspectors because I can't get technically I can get it super close, but I can't beat code on rise and run on the steps, but I can get it really close. I don't know, we'll figure that out, and if I have to, we can do an outside stairway to the proposed deck, and get them up there, because there'll be a door up at the deck anyway, so they can go out of the second floor apartment onto the deck. I do historic restorations in Fort Wayne. I live in West Central, and I have been doing these forever. This home here is probably the newest one. It's 1945 it was built. The last one I did in West Central was 156 years old. I live in a house that's 115 in West Central years old. And the house that we have, or I call it cottage, that we have here was built in 1918. And we renovated it also. Just because we like, some properties still have some redeeming value. There's some that are gone. This one, some would say it needs to go, but it also has a screwed up lot that is very difficult to utilize, because 350 along there, all those houses you see are those are all garages on the east side of the street. And so, I think a garage is probably what needs to be there. And we will utilize the second floor as overflow. My sister, when she comes to town, I can put her over there. And those kind of, guests, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much it. In talking to John Butler, the individual we bought it from, he's the one who told me that it had been an apartment immediately prior to him, and evidently went through a foreclosure. John had owned it since 2010, and we bought it in 2022. The whole time John lived there, nobody lived downstairs, and I don't think anybody had been in there since the property had been foreclosed downstairs. There is a bathroom on the first floor. There is a washer and dryer hookup. There's also a kitchen on the first floor. We intend to put overhead doors back in. My wife would probably like to keep the kitchen, because she says if you have a rainy day on July 4th and we got a bunch of people there, that she can go in there and keep food warm and serve it, but nobody's going to be living there. So the second floor apartment is very nice, actually. Doesn't look so nice now, but it has hardwood floors. It's going to be renovated to my daughter's design that you see on there. It is going to be done, what does she call it? Mid-century modern or something like that. Did I get that right? Okay. So that's the plan. Refinish the hardwood floors, bring it back. It'll have new windows. We have put a roof on, since I didn't change the roof on. I think I understand that I could have done that, and I did it. So we just want to make it an asset instead of a liability.
Any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll go ahead to the public hearing, which we'll open the public hearing. I don't see anybody here to speak for or against it. By rushing in, so we will close the public hearing and we will go back to the board. And that. Board, do you have any questions? I have one. Now, he's planning on using this, like he says, when family comes to stay in that. There does not need to be a second dwelling put on this or anything, or,
No, it's not a second dwelling, it's the only dwelling on the property, so,
okay,
yeah,
understand now.
that's perfectly okay. The only issue is it's too small by square footage.
Well, if there's no other questions, we'll entertain a motion. And there are no conditions with this,
Correct.
so.
Do we need a motion or can we just vote?
Either way.
Well,
Would you
then
rather-
we, it's how you guys would prefer it, so. Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor of 24W variance 23, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously, with all parties voting in favor. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
You also.
Thank you.
Okay.
We aren't open Thursday, Friday. I don't know if I
Okay.
can get a permit that quick or not, but
Sounds good.
I'll get you some info tomorrow.
All right. Is there any other business?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll adjourn.
That's fancy.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
But first, happy Festivus. It's time for the airing of grievances.
The Festivus for the rest of it.